Okay, we are recording now. So hello everyone, I'm Natalia. I work in the customer success department here at Matific, and today I have the pleasure of introducing Renée Michaud. Renée is a mathematics consultant. She offers training in French and English in Western Canada and beyond, in person and remotely. She presents tailor-made practical workshops during professional development days and at various conferences. Renée became a consultant in 2007 after working for many years as a French immersion teacher in Calgary, Alberta. She will be talking today about teaching, learning, and retaining. If you have any questions, as she say, you can leave them in the chat. Without further ado, let's welcome Renée. Thank you, Renée.
Well. Thank you, Natalia, and thank you, Matific. Matific is sponsoring this session this afternoon, so thank you. So yeah, we're going to be talking about teaching, learning, and retaining. That's the goal, right? So we're going to get started right away with two facts. Students are anxious in math class. Math anxiety is a real thing, right? So we want to see how we can reduce anxiety when possible, as often as possible. The other fact is that, and you all know this already, students quickly forget what they learn, right? And this is where I'm starting from for this session is, can we do something about it? Right? So there is a bit of a solution that I would like to suggest. Now, the solution is much wider, bigger, deeper than what I can offer in 40 minutes with you this afternoon. But I'll give you a taste of it. Hopefully you can tweak your approach in whatever subject you teach, at whatever grade you teach. Now, what we want is, we obviously want to reduce anxiety. We obviously want to increase learning. But in order to do that, we're going to use brain research on how the brain actually learns. Again, it won't be in the depth. It can be in 3 hours, but it'll give you a taste of what we can do, and hopefully it'll be practical for you. So in this webinar, obviously, how the brain learns is where we're going to go in order for the teaching, the learning, and retaining to be effective and efficient. So your turn. We're going to use the chat here. It doesn't have to be extensive. I just want to ask you a couple of questions, very simple questions. What do you see? Okay. What happened there? What do you think happened there? How do you know? And what do you wonder? So it'll take you a few moments to type, I'm sure, but it doesn't have to be full sentences, just a few words, keywords. That's good enough. What do you see? What happened there? How do you know? And what do you wonder? If you wonder anything, of course. So I'll wait for your answers. So if you're watching the recording, there will be a bit of a dead time here where we're going to wait for answers, and I'm going to read the answers as they come up, so that people who listen to the recording can actually hear and see what participants have shared. So I get a path, obviously. Yes. But that's important. It's probably the most important piece. You see a rainforest, and probably there was a hike in that forest, woods, a trail, totally. I wonder how cold it is. Well, here in Alberta, it's a little warm for now, but it'll get cold. We all know that, right? So yes, I wonder how cold that is. Absolutely. So how do you know that it's a trail? Who has used it to travel? Right. How do you know it's a trail? I want this specific. And I think experience helps us answer that question, right? We've been there. It's worn on the path. Yeah, there's no plants. It's worn down. Absolutely. Now, I'm going to ask you the following questions. Any chance that plants can grow on the trail in the next year, in the next 3 years, 5 years? Any chance the plants can grow there? No plants, right? For now. But think about it. It's been stepped on so much that chances of plants growing back in that trail are limited, right? At least in the short term, of course. So let's make a parallel with the brain. So right now in nature, the more you use the trail, the more defined it is, the easier it is to access and to find again from season to season. Fair enough? Okay, how is that related to the brain? Well, our brain is made of neurons, right? And they connect. And the more you use the neurons, the more you retain. So the neural network is involved when you encode new information. So new information is basically, for example, my name is new information. What I did in my past is new information. So when you listen to Natalia, you encoded information. I bet you already started forgetting what Natalia said. And I'm not pointing you out. I'm just saying it's Mother Nature. We tend to forget what we encode unless we do something about it, right? So the more connections are strengthened when we encode and activate and reactivate the exact same thing. So we want for memory to be more durable. We want it to last the longest possible time, right? Because the more memory we keep in our brain, the more connections we can make with new information, which makes the new information more accessible because of the connections. So what can we do as teachers? Well, first of all, how does learning work? First, so in order to learn, the brain must change. And I don't mean change, I don't mean a big transformation. I mean, some changes happen when you start learning. Now, why is that possible? Because we now know that the brain has neuroplasticity. We can learn things at 6 months old, 5 years old, 80 years old, because we do have that plasticity here that allows for the brain to change when a new information is gathered, right? Is presented to us. So how we learn? Well, encoding is the new information that's being held in your short-term memory. My name it was encoded a few moments ago. All right. But beyond that, how can you remember my name in 10 minutes, tomorrow, next week, in 6 months? That's the key. And for that to happen, we talk about consolidation. So it's any activity, whether it's in the classroom or in your real life with your children, for example, that promotes retention of the new knowledge. So it can be, hey, do you remember the noise a cow makes? How about a duck? Right? And you keep bringing that back. You go for a walk with your child and you practice those things, right? That's consolidation. So what you're saying is, you got new information. Now we need to remember it because it's useful or because it's fun or because whatever, right? Retention is now the new knowledge, which is no longer new, that is stored in your long-term memory. So it went from the working memory to the long-term memory thanks to the consolidation. And retrieval is the action of recalling that knowledge over a period of time. You bring it back to your short-term memory so it can be used. So in next week, you'll say to a friend, oh, I attended this session. Her name was Renée Michaud. Yes, that's retrieval, right? You were able to retain it because of the consolidation. And of course, I've been saying my name a couple of times. Natalia saw my name. My name is beside my face on the screen. Eventually, you will retain it, right? And when you need to retrieve it, it will be accessible. So, retention. We need to start with a counter example in order to talk about the new way you could teach. It's not a big change, it's just tweaking it. So in the old days, when I was in school, we used to work with blocked practice. Here's what it looks like. We had lesson A on concept A, right? We did a bunch of exercises, and we assessed that concept, and we moved on. And the exercises may have been some form of practices, some form of word problems if you teach math, some form of online activities, possibly homework, right? That was the variety of exercises we did. We did a number of them. They were blocked, and then we were assessed, and then we moved on. So we went to concept B, we did exercises and then assessment, and then we went on to the third concept, and then we did some exercises and then assessment. And it kept going that way from September to June, your full year, right? So those were blocked, and they are done intensively over a short period of time. But there's a problem with that, and we call it the forgetting curve. So here's the curve here. So it has, the horizontal axis is approximate. The retention is vertical, and you see a big drop early on, and then it smooths out a little bit, right? So let me read that for you for a second. Let's look at this point here, 2 days into the new learning. Well, there's a problem, because based on that, because we did blocked practice, we probably retained less than half 2 days after the new information was shared, right? That's what's happening right now when we do blocked practice. So what happens is it's quickly learned because we were so intense into learning that concept, but it's quickly forgotten. And we want to stop, or at least slow down the forgetting process in our brain. That's where I'm going with this. And so now my first suggestion, we have a question here.
Yes, sorry, we have a question. How accurate is the forgetting curve?
Okay, let's go back to this graph here. It's not so much, it's not very accurate. What I'm getting at is, if you teach math at all, this is a negative slope, right? It goes down from left to right, and it's very steep. It's a steep curve, which shows basically what we need is the general idea that we quickly forget, and whatever was left in my memory, we will eventually forget all, basically, right? So it's not that precise. It's the curve that we want to look at. It's to emphasize that in the first few days, you forget almost everything. That's the key here. Thank you for the question. All right. So the spacing here, this is the blocked practice we talked about, okay? I want to do a contrast now, is that the spacing that I'm suggesting, it's spreading the learning activities. Even lessons could be spread over time. So what does this look like? So let's look at this. We have our lesson on a certain concept, and then you space out the exercises, the practice. Okay, exercise. And the exercise can be anything here, remember. And then after exercise A, you space out exercise B, so a short period of time. Then you space it out some more, you do another practice, and so on and so forth, until you feel your students are ready for a summative assessment. So now your concept has taken a lot more time, but when you reach the summative assessment, there's a better chance that students actually are ready for it, to demonstrate that they've learned, they've mastered. Okay? So how does spacing work? So because you spread over time, it redefines the forgetting curve. So let me bring it back. So this is the forgetting curve again. You see that serious dip early on, and then it slows down. I spread it over 6 months just to demonstrate. Again, it's not precise. It's just a demonstration of what actually can happen when you start spacing. So, assuming we're starting to space our practice, then what happens is, of course, in the first few minutes, students forget the first few things. Your short-term memory can take about 7 or 8 different new pieces of knowledge, okay? But half of them are forgotten in the first 10 minutes, believe it or not. So we want to stop that forgetting process. So we're going to do a little something else, a practice of some sort, right? But the kids will forget some more, but forget less. And then you do another form of a practice exercise. It brings it back up in your working memory. Then they start forgetting again and again and again, right? When you start comparing the black curve with the green curve, you do have a gain, a significant gain. Now, the gain can differ from subject to subject, from concept to concept, from student to student. But know that the brain research says there is a gain, right? And that's where I'm coming from. So now, if we want to do this, we need to start looking at our practice as an educational engineering process. You need to be an engineer behind all of this. So you need to plan moments during the year, increasingly spaced out, where students revisit the concepts, using varied learning activities that trigger memory retrieval. We want to trigger that memory retrieval so that the pathways in your brain or in their brains becomes as defined as the trail you saw in the picture of the forest. So these retrieval moments are important and are integral part of your planning, hence the engineering concept here. We'll come back on engineering in a moment. So now let's bring that back. What does that mean? Well, we want to talk about retrieval practices. What does that look like in the classroom? So what are we going to do here? What are we going to do there, here, and there to make sure that the kids actually have a chance to retrieve that information on a regular but spaced out practice over time? Okay, so we're going to go to the chat here. I invite you to start typing a few ideas about retrieval practice. Let's make a list of teacher orchestrated learning activities that enable memory retrieval. What do you actually do in your classroom for your students to retrieve new information so that, you know, it comes right back? Now, it doesn't mean you're doing the spacing. It means, what do you actually use as a teacher to help your students retrieve new information? I just want a short list here that we're going to go over. And again, as they appear on the chat, I will read them so that participants who listen to the recording can actually have a sense of what you guys are saying. So we have small group stations, absolutely. Small games surrounding the topic. I want them to retain, making it fun, helps them to remember. Yes, fun is the emotional part of the retrieval, right? The more fun it is, the more likely they will retain. However, we need to consolidate that retrieval as well after a small game. That is great. What else do you do? So we have small group stations. Of course, stations work very well as a practice to retrieve. Absolutely. Games. What else do we have? Short videos. Totally, Sarah. Absolutely. Short videos will work. And you know what? With today's technology, we are bombarded by videos, and some are absolutely top notch, right? We just need to be a little bit more careful in what we choose, but we have access. I mean, in my time, I had to order a video and order the machine and put the video and it was, but now it's a click and a click and a click and you get everything else. All right, let's move on here. Continuously use manipulative. So Christy, I assume you are probably in the elementary school setting. Yes, manipulatives are amazing for at the moment you teach a new concept in math. Absolutely. That's not the only time you should use it. You should use it anytime it's available, it's necessary. All the students should have access all the time to manips. Absolutely. And you can go back to old concepts using the same manips. Absolutely. All right, so let's go back here to the presentation. I made a list of things of what you could do, right? And they may seem so typical, but they help. So the first one I would recommend is multiple choice questions, right? You start a math class or math period with a multiple choice question. It doesn't have to be a long period of time for the retrieval. It could be just the one question. That's it. And we move on to the next concept, the next activity, the next whatever, right? So it could be one question, could be a couple of questions. But what it does for you is it provides you with formative assessment. So it tells you whether the kids did remember or do not remember, what percentage of kids remember, what percentage does not. And it helps you decide if you need to come back to it from scratch or if you just need to help them retrieve on a regular basis because they've already mastered some concepts. And you're just your effort is to make sure that they don't forget it. How about fill in the blanks, right? Why not? A couple of questions like that, real quick. As a matter of fact, it could also be a bonus question in an exam, right? The bonus question is about something from the past. Write a summary of something. Help them express themselves on paper. Write the summary. That will help, and they could do that as a pair to help. They will help each other write the summary. Study or create non-examples. Non-examples help define examples. So when you have a list of examples, it's nice to have at least one non-example to confirm that the students understand the concept. And so here I'm suggesting the Freire model. It could be something else, but the non-example is part and parcel of the Freire model. That's why I'm suggesting it. We also have watch a video and answer questions. So that was suggested by Sarah. Thank you. Matching questions. It could be on paper, could be on the board. You could use Kahoot, you could use whatever, but matching questions could be a good way to retrieve information. Peer-to-peer explanations is amazing. And there's a couple of ways you can do that. And I put an asterisk here because I want to put emphasis on it as it is one of the best ways to retrieve information. So student A helps explains a concept to student B. Student B could explain using different words the same concept, or they can each explain a different concept to each other. There's a few ways you could do that. Yes, it does take a little bit longer than a multiple question. It does take a little bit longer than a matching question, but it is one of the best ways to retrieve and make sure that the connections are made with other concepts. Feedback from the teacher or feedback from a parent, a peer, is also one of the best ways to consolidate and to retrieve. So for you to feel comfortable using some of those, there are a couple of things I want to highlight. They must require an effort, and let me define that. So if I say to you guys 2 + 2, you're going to jump to the chat and you're going to all write 4 as the answer. You did not make any effort to put the answer correctly in the chat. because I know as adults that you know that 2 + 2 = 4. The thing is, what's happening in your brain as an adult is automatism. It's instant. You did not make any effort. It's already registered in your brain. Therefore, it came easy to you, no effort. What we are suggesting is when you do some retrieval, it has to require a little bit of effort. And for that to happen, it could be a different complexity level. It could be a side question. But the students have to make an effort. How does that happen? Well, by spacing it a little bit more every time, right? The students now require an additional effort because the forgetting curve had started. You want to bring it back to the surface, and so on and so forth. So spacing alone will help you ensure that there's an effort that's being made by the student. And the second one is you do it repeatedly and relentlessly. So that's why we talk about engineering, is that you have to insert those things in your lesson plans, your yearly plan, so that it's being done consistently and relentlessly. So I'm going to take a deep breath here, give you a chance. If there are questions, I will continue in a moment, but please do go to the chat. Since you can't use your microphone, go to the chat, type up your question. Natalia and I can actually answer those. Natalia, any comments or any questions you've seen?
We have a question. How about math routines? Could they serve as retrieval practice?
Okay, let's define math routines. So math routine is what you do routinely, like in a routine manner. So that's, let's say, every Thursday, right? You start your math period with the same routine. It's not a routine like we all place our shoes at the same place at the same time. It's a math routine, so it has to do with the subject you teach, in this case math, for example, right? So yes, routines will help you go back to old concepts. So every Thursday, you bring up that routine on the whiteboard. Students answer questions. They can be about anything and everything. But yes, you go back, you go further back, you go even further back in order to bring back to the surface the concepts that you want them to retrieve. And because of the time, of course, it will require an effort. So math routines are absolutely a good medium to achieve that retrieval. Totally. Any other questions?
I believe we have no more questions for now.
All right, so let's move on. So with spacing, we need to interleave. All right, you've probably noticed that if we do spacing, there's dead time that's not used up. So let me place a timeline on the screen here with a start and an end. If you are at the elementary level, the start could be September, the end could be the first reporting period, or could be Christmas, or whatever. If you're at the secondary level, maybe your start time is the beginning of a semester and the end time is the end of the semester. So let's leave that open up. Okay, let's leave that open, start and end. But if you do spacing, what happens is you do your lesson, you do your retrieval, you leave some time in between and so on. And eventually you assess summatively, right? So that leaves some dead time. So interleaving is the process where multiple subjects, topics, concepts are mixed or interleaved. So you insert something here, you insert something there, you insert something there to use up your time to the best of your ability, right? So now, in those spaces, if we look at the forgetting curve that we've now modified with spacing, then basically what we're saying is, what are we going to do here? What are we going to do there and here and there, right? What are we going to insert in our plan so that we have spacing for one concept, but we don't want to lose time as per the graph here? Again, we're talking about educational engineering. So in your yearly plan, which is probably something you have to prepare short term here, your principal or your administrator has probably asked for your yearly plan. You might want to tweak your yearly plan so that you integrate spacing and interleaving of concepts, right? You could do it on a yearly plan. If you're worried, you could try it on a shorter terms. So for example, you could plan a unit where you do retrievals in for short but frequent memory retrievals inside a unit, right? So you might want to start small steps. So your unit might be where you start. Your yearly plan would be the goal, possibly, to insert everything all the time. If you want to try it on a lesson, and a lesson is not just one day, could be a couple of days, right, where everything is spread out a little bit. You plan fewer blocked practice, but you insert more varied practice. This is where you would insert a question about last week, right? A couple of questions, maybe a bonus question, maybe, something like that, so that the kids actually understand that you're doing it on purpose, not to make their life miserable, but you're doing it on purpose based on brain research. The students need to understand your strategy so that they buy into it. So, of course, a bit of a caveat here, a bit of a warning. The approach of spacing and interleaving will require more effort. It will require more effort on your part, but also on the part of your students. We hope more on the student's part, right? But it will require effort on your part as well. Let's not kid ourselves here. It's a bit of a switch. The tweaking will take some planning, but it's sometimes accompanied by the impression shared by students and teachers of progressing more slowly. Of course, you're going to space it out, so the progress will be slower. So let me show you a bit of a graph, or if you prefer, a bit of a visual to understand. So on this left side would be your blocked practice. So over time, the progress is really, really steep. It's really good. It's wow, we're impressed, right? Good job, right? But on the right side of the screen, you now see that the progress will be slower because it's spread over a longer period of time if you do the spacing and the interleaving, right? So we need to be aware of that. The students need to be aware of that. And guess what? Parents need to be aware of that as well. Okay, based on that, why would we go this way? Well, on the left side, we know based on brain research that the retention is not nearly as good. In fact, you complain about your students who forgot everything that you did yesterday, right? Well, if you do the spacing interleaving, the retention will be long lasting, longer than if you did the blocked, right? That's what we hope. That's the investment we're aiming for, right? So based on that, let me just tell you that when you assess now, if you assessed after your blocked practice, what you really assess is performance, okay? It's like at the Olympics. Will they jump 2 meters or will they not jump 2 meters, right? That's the performance. But on the right side, you will assess mastery more so than performance. Okay. And hopefully mastery is what we aim for. And why? Because there are some subjects that rely on a strong foundation to build upon. Math is one of them. So if the foundation is mastered, everything else you tack on, every other level of difficulty you tack on is more likely to stick, right? If on the other side of the story is that if the foundation is not good, then of course anything you tack on will be not nearly as mastered, That's the key here. But we want this. It's called desirable difficulty. We want that difficulty will pay off, is what we're saying. All right. So in conclusion, based on all of this, there are 4 things I would suggest we need to remember based on the last 40 or so minutes. Brain research can positively impact teaching, learning, and retaining. I've only shared a portion of what brain's research suggests. Let's be clear on that. I cannot do it all in 40 minutes, but hopefully I gave you a taste of it. Spacing and interleaving must be carefully planned. It's got to be in your plan. You cannot wing it. You have to plan it so that the students benefit from all of it. Spacing and interleaving may seem difficult, both for the teacher and the students, but the long-term benefits are proven based on the research. And I would suggest that after today, being the beginning of the school year, this would be a good time to start small, but start, right? Try something. And you may not be good at it from September to June, but you may be good at it from, a short period of time, and it helped. Let your students know what your plan is, why you're doing it, and they will buy into it most likely. On that note, I want to thank you for joining the session this afternoon on brain research. Hopefully that gave you a sense of what can be done, and there's more to be done, but this is what I was hoping to share with you this afternoon for you to give you a taste of what it is. So based on that, I just want to remind you that this session was sponsored by Matific. And if you would like a free demo to Matific, here's a QR code that will allow you to provide your name and your information so that Matific can share a free demo for a short period of time. It's a magnificent little online math practice, and it allows for spacing and interleaving, and that's the key here. So I'll let Natalia provide you with the link in the chat as well. And then if you want the last word, Natalia is in Argentina and I'm in Calgary, Alberta. So here we are. So it's in the chat if you'd like to, if the QR code is not your thing, then you can have the URL in the chat. Natalia?
Thank you so much, Renée, for your valuable presentation. And as she mentioned, if you would like a free demo, Matific works with gamified activities with a rigorous pedagogy for students. They work through interactive and engaging content, and you could put into practice a lot of the things that Renée told us today. Thank you very much for all your time. Thank you all for attending, and thank you, Renée, for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Hope you have
Take care and to everyone, have an excellent school year.
Bye-bye.
Bye.